I was both physically and mentally exhausted after seeing my son suddenly fall ill. My husband coldly said,
"All you have to do is do housework and nurture. I only settled for my marriage partner with you, who can tolerate cheating."
He lashed out at me, without showing any concern for our little son. Leaving me stunned with shock, he took a sip from his second can of beer. "My name is Alice, and I am 33 years old. I met my current husband, Carl, who is 8 years older than me, through a marriage consultation agency 4 years ago. He is an elite man, working for a prestigious company, and has a slight high self-esteem, but he took control even though I was shy. I was attracted to his manhood and quickly fell in love with him. He praised me for being modest like a Japanese woman, and I tried my best to meet his expectations, even after we started almost living together at my house. Perhaps it worked, as after a year of dating, he finally proposed to me, as I had longed for. Of course, I said yes. "I will support you as a family breadwinner, and I want you to take care of the house when we get married." In order to fulfill his wish, I resigned from my work. We held a grand wedding ceremony with many people invited, and soon after that, my husband moved into my house. Since then, I have devoted myself to housework and my husband, while spending my spare time on hobbies. I was blessed by my family, and I drew envious stares from my friends. An outsider might think, my husband was an elite with a high salary. He was surly at home, but he was pleasant to everyone else, and had a good look. Now, we also have a lovely son, Ken. It must have seemed happily married. Yes. I was supposed to be really happy.
"I'll be late. I don't need dinner, just prepare for the bath and supper."
I sighed, without thinking at the message that arrived after I finished cooking dinner. The only time we were happy as a couple was the first year of our marriage. He was delighted about the baby, but it was temporary and he didn't engage in nurturing, saying he was too busy with work. Whenever I asked for his help, even a little bit, he glared at me and said, "Do you make someone who has worked outside do housework and nurture?" He stared at me and left home obviously unhappy. He started to come home late day by day, and the number of days he came home drunk also increased proportionally. Sometimes he came home with a scent of perfume that I didn't know about. Meanwhile, I was struggling to look after my child day and night, and I often couldn't do housework due to a lack of sleep, which became chronic. However, it seemed that my husband wanted me to treat him in the same way as when we had no child.
"You live a comfortable life with a baby that just sleeps, you're doing no proper housework, and dozing off. That's a good position to be in."
I was woken up when I was dozing off with my son and didn't notice my husband coming home. I felt the blood drain when I heard his words without him saying, "I'm home." The next day, I saw my grumpy husband off and did as much housework as I could and waited for him to come home. Then, he came back earlier than usual and told me that he was going to divorce.
"If you don't like it, apologize from the bottom of your heart, show your attitude.
For the sake of our still young son, I must avoid losing your male parent. All I have to do is put up with it." I bit my lip and fell on my knees on the spot and said, I'm sorry. That night I got down on my knees for the first time in my life. Looking back, the warmth of my son sleeping beside me was the only thing that kept me rational. While I was looking after my child, in a way I was not used to, I devoted myself to my husband even more. He began to take it for granted that he would come home late or go out at night, casting a sidelong glance at me. Even if I have business cards and membership cards from nightclubs come to my attention, he would first say, "It's just socializing," and he would next say, "If you have a problem with it, you can leave." That's all he says. Around that time, when I began to get used to such a life, I was beginning to feel physically and mentally exhausted from housework and childcare. I fell asleep beside my son before I knew it. I don't know how long it was before I woke up to the sound of my son crying hard. "What's wrong?" My young son was crying with a bright red face. When I picked him up, his body was abnormally hot, and I panicked and rushed him to the general hospital, where he was born. Fortunately, the examination at the hospital revealed no major problems, but because he was still young, we ended up being hospitalized for a checkup in the same room, just to be safe.
The sick child care room is still available, and we can take care of your child for a little while. You can go home once to pick up anything you need.
As the nurse said that, I decided to go home on my own. I look at my phone and hesitate. Although I was told not to contact him during work hours, this time it was about our son. I decided to call him anyway. However, there was no response, so I reluctantly sent a message. My young son was waiting alone in an unfamiliar place. I didn't have time to wait for a reply. I left a memo on the table with the necessary items, and left a car there just in case, and hurried back to the hospital. As expected, my son was cranky all day and clung to me. Although a sleeper bed was provided, he didn't let me be away, so I couldn't go to the bathroom or eat properly, and the time passed. It wasn't until around 11 o'clock at night, when my son fell asleep, exhausted. When I went to the bathroom, and took a sip of hot chocolate from a vending machine, to get some calories, my smartphone rang loudly. It was my husband on the other end. Hello? How was work?
Hey, whereabouts are you?
This was the first thing he said, and it made my heart flutter. At the hospital. Didn't I leave a note? We're staying in the same room for Ken's examination.
More importantly, what about my dinner?
More importantly? I was irritated by his one-word crapped on our son, but didn't want to wake up my son, who had just fallen asleep. I answered calmly. I wrote it in the message. I didn't have time to make dinner. There is some meal prep in the fridge, and some bread for breakfast too. You also have a car, so you can eat out? Please just make your own tonight.
Don't you know the saying, men should keep out of the kitchen? Who do you think you are to let your husband, who is tired from work, stand in the kitchen? There's nothing for you to do in the hospital, come home for me now.
I heard the sound of him opening a can of beer in the distance. While saying something great, he could go into the kitchen and open the fridge for a drink. He told me to come home, without a word of concern for his son, and he didn't seem to come to pick us up. I felt myself starting to get angry with my husband, who started drinking comfortably at home. There's no bus, so don't be reckless. Besides, there is no way I can go home alone without my baby, who is not even 1 year old yet. He is being hospitalized, even for a checkup. Aren't you worried? When I raised my voice unintentionally, he clicked his tongue.
Oh? Are you talking back to me because you can't see my face? If you're going to act like that, we'll get divorced. You're just a housewife, with no great qualifications or education, who is plain and mediocre as a woman. How are you going to live in this recession? I mean, it's your job to raise kids, and do the housework, right? That's what happens, when you neglect taking care of it.
It's that again. The word divorce has been used frequently as a last resort, since that day. If anything goes wrong, the second word is divorce. Divorce, what do you think of us? The words overflowed without thinking. Balancing childcare and housework was never easy, though. Still, I have tried to do my best, as a wife and mother, because I believe my husband loves our family. He comes home late, he goes to the nightclubs, he's there for his family. I could turn a blind eye to it, because I believe it is part of working. When the phone suddenly became quiet, I heard a second can of beer open. As soon as he finished slurping it down, he shouted at me.
Look, what you've suddenly said, who do you think is feeding you guys? Don't make me laugh.
What?
How dare you say arrogant things like that to your husband? All you have to do, is do housework and nurture. After that, you're just going to wither away.
Wither away?
Women just wither away after they turn 30, right? I'm not going to go along with a withering flower, and let myself wither too. It's natural for a man to choose a young woman. I only settled for my marriage partner with you, who can tolerate cheating.
That's... I was shocked and speechless with his abusive language, which cannot be covered with the words like, it's because of the alcohol. He smirked at me.
I don't want to live a life bounded by a family. I've had enough drinks to make me full, so I don't need dinner anymore. I'm going to bed now, and I'm going out tomorrow. Don't contact me anymore, got it? If you don't want to get divorced, think about your position again. If you keep behaving like that, while living off of my earnings, then I won't give you any more living expenses from now on.
My phone was cut off unilaterally. At that moment, something inside me snapped with a sound. As soon as I realized that marriage and children were just tools for appearance for that person, every last speck of love for my husband disappeared. Disappointment and anger surged at the same time. I couldn't forgive my husband for not taking care of me, not even our lovely only son. I will never be a timid, meek wife. I'll make him regret looking down on me as a mother. The next day, I contacted a private detective agency while my son was undergoing tests. My son was safely discharged from the hospital later that day, when no major problems were found. We decided to go back home once. As expected, my husband didn't come to pick us up, and didn't even show any concern. I sent him a message with the results of my son's diagnosis, which he also ignored. My husband finally came back near dawn. His face was red, and smelled strongly of alcohol. I greeted him at the door, and quietly said, "I've reconsidered my position."
Oh, did you? Then I'll turn a blind eye for once. Be grateful.
He laughed through his nose and went upstairs, while throwing his clothes around. He fell asleep in his bed, wearing only his underwear, and started snoring loudly. There was something, like glittering makeup, stuck on the shirt I picked up. "You can do whatever you want." While taking a side glance at my husband, who now looks like just an ordinary middle-aged man, I began to steadily prepare. About a month later, I woke up to the persistent doorbell ringing, shortly after the sky had begun to turn white.
Hey! Wake up! Why isn't it opening? Your husband is home.
It seems that my husband returned from his 3-day, 2-night business trip. I thought he would come back at night, but he came back in the morning. I doubt if it was really a business trip, but it doesn't matter to me now. While rubbing my sleepy eyes, I called my husband on his phone. "Can you stop this, so early in the morning? You're disturbing the neighbors."
The door won't open. Did Ken break it? Damn it, this is all because you didn't watch him.
"It's not broken."
No way.
"I changed the lock while you were on your business trip."
What?
Through the upstairs window, I saw my husband standing there, stunned.
Wow, what the heck are you doing without permission? What do you think your husband is? Divorce. I'll divorce you. If you don't like it, then open it quickly.
"I already registered it."
What?
"The divorce papers, right? I already registered. You and I are no longer related."
What? Wait a minute. I don't remember writing anything like that. Okay. You filled it out and sent it out without permission, didn't you? It's called forgery of a private document, and it's invalid.
My husband laughed winningly, but I laughed at him through my nose. "Have you forgotten? The first time you brought up divorce, didn't you bring me a completed form?" Yes, on the day I got down on my knees, my husband brought back the completed divorce papers. After making me apologize in front of him and showing me those papers, he crumpled them into a ball and threw them at me.
You threw it away, didn't you?
"I didn't throw it away. You threw the crumpled divorce papers at me, but I left them behind in case I had to. I guess I knew from that moment on that this day would come." When I said that with feeling, he was clearly upset with his mouth open.
Wow, what about the house? What about living expenses? How would you, a housewife, be going to live from now on? Poor thing, because of your reckless behavior, our young son is completely lost.
Don't get me wrong. Did you forget? This house was originally inherited from my late grandfather, and is under my name. You were just living with me, right? You don't need to worry about our life. I have a job.
Liar. You didn't have time to get a new job.
I was drawing pictures as a hobby. You told me not to go to bed before you do, so I kept drawing while waiting for you. Then, I uploaded them to the internet, and they caught the eye of someone from a publishing company.
Uh? That's impossible. You must have been tricked.
It's not unusual these days to debut through the internet. It's a reputable company. You know it too, don't you? When I said the name of the publishing company, he was stunned and muttered.
Seriously?
It wasn't a voice of anger or sarcasm, but rather my husband's dumb voice, that I hadn't heard in a long time. So for the time being, it's not a problem. Besides, I also have compensation from you. I opened the window and threw a photo that I got from a detective at my husband. I had them investigated by a detective agency. I wouldn't have minded if you just went to nightclubs, but you even have sexual relationships with girls from the club. I also contacted the club. The girls were on my side, as soon as I told them I wasn't going to charge them compensation. My husband frantically gathered up his things and turned pale. No wonder. He and a young girl who looked like she was in the night business were photographed going into a dodgy place. Here's an addition. Next, I scattered around a screenshot of all the messages my husband has ever sent me. In the morning, people started to move on. Whether it was photos or messages, if they saw the content, my husband would not be in a position to do anything about it. I've also kept all the records of what you said, and did on a daily basis that I can. I will, of course, send this to my lawyer as well. You can take those photos and images home with you. The original data is properly stored.
An investigation agency? A lawyer? I don't think you're allowed to do that with my money.
I used my savings from when I was single. There's no reason for you to complain. When I retorted sharply, he bit his lip and glared at me. Ever since I got married, my husband has demanded me to be modest, so I hardly spent money on myself. My savings were almost untouched. I surprised myself that I was earning so much. I should have done this sooner. I'm so mad at my old self for being quiet. Perhaps, he was worried about what the neighbors would think. He laughed foolishly and said in a gentle voice.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I apologize, just let me in for now. We're a couple.
We're not a couple anymore, we're no longer related. Open the mailbox. He opened the mailbox passively. He took out an envelope and gave a good look at it. There's a key and map to a rental storage. Everything we bought with your salary, since we got married, is in there. You can take the car as you bought it, now, get out of my sight. Thanks to my husband, who never did any housework, I knew exactly where all his stuff was. He probably doesn't even know how many shirts he has.
What? I can't live without you.
When he sounds so sweet now, all I can feel is a chill. I can live without you. You don't care about our son or the withered flowers. Why don't you let a young girl devote herself to you?
Hang on a minute.
From now on, I'll talk through my lawyer. If you stay here any longer, I'll report you to the police. See you. I hung up the phone, and locked the window and closed the curtains. For a while, my husband rang the doorbell and banged on the door. He sent me some messages, asking if we could get back together, but I ignored them. When the neighbors started whispering, seeing my husband like that, he got into the car roughly and left as if he was running away. After a while, I received a call from my parents-in-law. Apparently, he had spent most of his free cash and savings from his single days at nightclubs, and begged his parents for help, unbecoming of his age. I explained the detailed situation to my in-laws in a polite manner, with evidence. A few days later, they handed me a thick envelope saying, "I'm sorry for the trouble my foolish son has caused you." It was compensation with a little extra that I had claimed from my husband. My in-laws had to pay temporarily, on behalf of their son, who could not afford to pay it. According to what I heard at the time, he took advantage of his position to play with his company's money. He was banned after I lodged the information against the nightclub. It seems that the company found out about the sudden change in income and expenditure. Although he wasn't fired, he was shunned off to a rural area, with no real work to do. Now he is apparently living alone in a cheap apartment, but he didn't know anything about housework until now. I can imagine how terrible his life is, but I don't feel sorry for him. He deserves it. Meanwhile, I sold the house and went back to my parents' house, explaining the situation. I started working part-time at a supermarket, while working as an illustrator. I can't live a luxurious life, though I can eat what I want when I want. My parents care about us. Above all, my son has not had any serious illnesses since that day, and he is growing up healthy every day. Recently, he has been saying things like, "I want to help," which makes me very happy. Even if there is no father around, I swear on my empty ring finger that I will make this child happy by taking on both the roles of a father and a mother.